Hey guys, Kyle the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for Eden Zero Chapter 102, and oh boy, what a chapter we got here today. Okay, so the biggest thing this chapter does is it firmly establishes Ziggy as the main antagonist of the series moving forward. Like from this point on, like Ziggy, like he's going to be the main threat that's going to be that's going to be opposing our heroes, and honestly, not only that, but when you pretty much throw the intergalactic agency into this as well, like there's gonna like it's gonna cause a whole it's gonna be like a whole like pretty much pretty much triangle of a pretty much triangle of problems for our heroes. Like that's like it creates this very interesting dynamic where sometimes they're going to be dealing with they're going to be fighting Ziggy more often than not, but at the same time I wouldn't be surprised if Mashima is planning to throw like the government, the intergalactic, the interstellar, the interstellar galactic agencies into this as well, because pretty much because of Ziggy's return. Like Ziggy at this point is going to be like the intergalactic agency it's the intergalactic agency are going to have to are going to be looking at this like it's two demon kings and they want to get rid of both of them. So like the dynamic here is kind of palpable. It is kind of very interesting in some ways, but and of course, on top of like Ziggy being established as the main antagonist, we also introduce the chapter also introduces us to his generals, the Dark Stars, who are essentially the inverse of the four Starshines. And I'll be honest, their introduction is again one of those times where I got massively spoiled due to Annie Twitter, so it wasn't a huge shock or surprise by any of what happened in this chapter, but at the same time, it actually got me way more excited now than I would be had I not been spoiled, because obviously what Machin was essentially doing here is setting Ziggy and the Dark Stars up as the dark ideological reflection to Shiki and the Four Starshines. But the thing is, just on premise alone, this has the potential to create so many great and unique character dynamics beyond just Ziggy and Shiki, because with the Dark Stars being introduced into the series now, Ziggy is essentially like throwing the Four Starshines away, and the one character I'm looking forward to seeing develop beyond, like after this point, is again Hermit. Again, believe it or not, because is definitely Hermit, because through this chapter, Ziggy not only turned his back on everything he once believed in, but he's also kind of thrown away everything he taught the Starshines as well. So while I doubt Hermit is going to fully regress as a character, it's one of those things where it's not only going to bring what Ziggy had taught her previously into question, but I think this is really going to serve as a motivator. Is going to serve as a great motivator in order for Hermit to come to her own conclusion and develop her own ideological conviction about the relationship between humans and machines. Because the thing with Hermit nowadays is that arguably you could say that she started to become more and more she's started to accept like a lot, become more and more accepting of humans and whatnot. But the thing is, she pretty much hasn't really developed her own her. But at the same time, she hasn't really developed her own ideals or her own beliefs about her own like solid beliefs about what she wants to do when it comes to the relationship between humans and humans and machines, like what Shiki has. So with this happening, it is going to like push that forward and allow her like to develop what it is she wants to do in order to ensure that peace between humans and machines is achieved almost. So yeah, I think it's going to be good in pushing her in that direction for sure. Now, one minor problem I do have is that for as much epic potential as this setup was, we didn't really dive all that much more into how Ziggy became the way he is now, or what's even happened to him in general, but I'm sure that will be explored more as we progress through the series. Plus, this is just another indicator of how things have changed since the battle with Dragon, so there's that too. The other thing is like, and again, like I said, the pretty much dynamics of this whole setup are just incredible. Like again, like with between Ziggy and his and Eden's one crew and whatnot, and then Shiki and his Eden Zero crew, like you just know that the government, like I said before, you just know the government is gonna throw their hat into this, knowing that there's two Demon Kings out there now, and like it's if the government end up throwing their hat, it's gonna create a whole mess of a triangle of conflict where it's like everything is just gonna get the dynamics that are going to create between like Shiki, Ziggy, and the government now are just going to be insane, I think. Um, now, one thing I'm kind of now with this chapter, one thing I'm kind of mixed on though is Pino's quick heel turn from being manipulated by Ziggy to turning her loyalty back to Shiki. And it's not so much that I have a problem with the change itself, since it was going to happen anyway. Like that was one of those things that was kind of guaranteed to happen. Like let's be real, Pino. After all that Pino has been through with the Eden Zero crew, there was no way she was going to outright betray Shiki. It wasn't going to happen. But I think what did kind of irk me a little bit was more Shiki's involvement in it, because on one hand, the way it's presented and the way it plays out, it makes sense that Shiki's plea would be what reached her with how their friendship is built up to this point, as well as how Pino's outlook has changed from being with Shiki. But part of me was also hoping that I could have seen Pino making that decision and reaching that conclusion herself without Shiki spelling it out. Like the problem here is not so much is the problem here is that Shiki injecting himself into the conversation feels kind of pointless and unneeded, except to remind us that they're friends. And because honestly, when you look at the dynamic of how that whole thing played out, Hermit I think had the better. Hermit honestly, I feel had a more pivotal role in getting Pino to like turn back to Shiki to the Eden Zero crew side more than Shiki himself. Shiki's whole throwing his hat in that whole thing just felt pointless. Like again, Hermit I think had more of a key pivotal role in getting Pino to come back more than Shiki did. But yeah, it just Shiki's involvement in that little conversation just felt a little off, I think, for me for some reason. With all that said, let's talk about the current situation that's facing our heroes, because they're basically staring down from gun barrels of Eden's One, as well as the prospect of maybe seeing a dogfight between the two ships as well. And so the setup there is just insane itself. But as of right now, I think this is. But the big thing with this setup for me is that this is honestly the perfect setup for us to see what is behind that vaulted steel door in the area of the ship that Homura had taken command of in place of Valkyrie. Like, just something about this whole setup between Eden Zero and Eden's One tells me it's time to reveal that mystery, which, depending on the circumstances of its use, does confirm for me at least that it's either a weapon, probably a cannon of some kind, or something akin to a hyperdrive engine, because those are the only two things that can help in this current situation. That's the only two things that can help them against Ziggy right now, since we have no idea of what the capabilities of the Dark Stars are, so it would just be idiotic to engage them directly right now. And I like to think that the fact that the Dark Stars are here and that we don't know their capabilities yet almost kind of serves as, I think, a bit of a motivator in order for the Starshines to get stronger in some way. Like, I'm not sure how they could do that with them being machine, but I think that kind of almost needs to happen now. But But yeah, guys, that's really, that's really all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Mr. Crunchyroll. Dead Knight of Enemy, signing off. Later, guys.